Today I'm going to be talking about the Detroit Lions 2021 NFL Draft, which I believe to be a top 3 NFL draft, and that it was a steal of the draft. So first you have to look at first round selection, Penei Sewell, who was selected with the 7th overall pick, offensive tackle out of Oregon. Many considered him to be the top pick in the draft. No one really thought he'd be available because Cincinnati was supposed to pick this generational tackle prospect. Penei Sewell is a hulking monster that some people consider him the best tackle prospect in many years. Some say he's the next coming of Trent Williams. And some may say, oh, the Lions should have taken a receiver. After all, their best receiver is Tyrell Williams, or you could even argue their best receiver is their tight end and T.J. Hockenson. But here's why I think the selection of Penei Sewell was fantastic. Is because I think O-line is more important than wide receivers. You don't want to debate me on that. Let's go to the 2019 Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield's stats: 3,827 yards, 22 touchdowns, 21 interceptions. What was the record? Oh yeah, 6-10. He was awful. 22 touchdowns, 21 interceptions. He only had one more touchdown than Vic. He had a 59.4% completion percentage. He was awful. Terrible record. People were saying Baker Mayfield was going to be replaced within the next season, and Colin Cowherd was happy out of his mind that he was, going to fail. Well, let's go into the 2020 season. The Browns were able to achieve an 11-5 record. And Baker Mayfield improved to a 62.8% completion percentage with 3,563 yards, 26 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. A much better touchdown to pick ratio. So what happened? He improved his completion percentage, his touchdown pick ratio, and his wins. But let's look at Baker Mayfield's team in 2019, shall we? Because if you look into Baker Mayfield's 2019 team, you go to the failed season, the most, Freddie Kitchens. He had that amazing run game. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, but Nick Chubb being 5 yards per carry, 4.2. He had Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham, 2 capable number ones. And he had that running back duo? That's pretty dang weird, if I do say so myself. So, what was different? What was different? Because if you go into 2020, he has the exact same weapons. Nick Chubb for running back, Kareem Hunt for running back. He has Jarvis Landry. He has Odell Beckham. And OBJ, OBJ even got hurt. And he had to go for Rashad Higgins, who apparently had drop issues. You had Austin Hooper barely even produced. So, what was different? The run game was still incredibly explosive. I wonder what it was. 26 sacks is the difference. With a 5.1% chance of being sacked, or times being sacked. That's an improvement from 7 and getting sacked 40 times. Baker Mayfield went from trash to good. And you may say, oh, that's just the Browns. They got Kevin Stefanski. Okay. Now, let's compare Andrew Luck, shall we? Andrew freaking Luck. Andrew Luck. Let's see. His first 2 seasons, he was not that good. He went 4,000 yards, 374, 23 touchdowns to 18 interceptions, and heck, you had 9 fumbles to pair off with it. He had 3,822 yards. He regressed in the yardage category, but did take down his picks, but still had double-digit turnovers. And some may say, oh man, that is pretty bad. But then Andrew Luck exploded into the scene in 2014. 4,761 yards, 40 touchdowns. Now he did pick up a couple more picks and did pick up the turnovers. But also, he also did a lot better. So what was the record for the 2014 Colts? 2014 record for the Colts. 11-5 and winning the playoffs. I think that's impressive. Andrew Luck went to the playoffs at 11-5. Now, what was the difference between his 2012 team? He had more attempts in his rookie year than he did his breakout year. Well, 2012, sacked 41 times. 2013, he was sacked 32 times, which, by the way, that's when he started to get the better pick touchdown ratio, just saying. And then he only got sacked 27 times, and look, the sack percentage even lowered at 5.3 to down to 4.2. Andrew Luck got better, and that's even a mess. In fact, he had even more attempts too, and his completion percentage went up. So in total, the O-line is more important. And you may say, okay, what about Andrew Luck weapons? Well, let's look for these last 3 years for the Indianapolis Colts. Who were the receivers? Well, 2012, let's go. He had Reggie Wayne, and good old Reggie Wayne, with nobody at running back. And he did have T.Y. Hilton, but also, this is his rookie where he struggled. Look, he had those 2 top-tier receivers. Yes, Reggie Wayne was a bit older, but he still was producing. Heck, he even had he had 4 solid weapons with Allen, Avery, Hill, and Wayne. And heck, even Colts fans would recognize that Coby Fleener was not too bad. What about 2013? This is a bit interesting, isn't it? Okay, so in preseason, he only has T.Y. Hilton and Coby Fleener. And Reggie Wayne mightily regresses. Isn't that strange? Isn't that strange? He struggled. He did better despite the fact his receivers struggled. But still, he wasn't perfect. And then 2014, isn't that strange? He had good old Reggie Wayne and good old T.Y. Hilton still, and Coby Fleener and a busted Dante Moncrief. And what diddly darn happened? They went 11-5 and went to the playoffs. And Andrew Luck got 40 touchdowns instead of 23. His yardage improved. His completion percentage improved. He got sacked less. He just only got better. How about you go to 2016 when Quentin Nelson was drafted? Oh my gosh. His picks went down. All the way down to 13, and he still kept up a high touchdown percentage and had an even larger yards per throw, but just had to throw less. Now granted, oh no, he had his 41 sacks. And so that led to him getting injured as well. So, now some may say, okay, I can at least get behind Penei Sewell. But what about Levi? Oh, what about him? Well, I will admit he's definitely, in my opinion, the boom or bust pick of this entire draft. But let's look at Levi. Of course, you will recognize the fact that, this guy's pretty small, 6'3", 288. It's not exactly the best look for him. He had a pretty solid final season, 45 tackles, 2 sacks. He only had 7 sacks, so a lot of this scares people. But let's look at something as well. Chris Sims, #1 defensive tackle with Levi. Professional football analyst, many people saw him as the best 3 tech. That's a big saying there. And not even the fact is, you may say, oh, but he's small. I'm not saying it's him. But this guy's even smaller. How about him? Strange, he's like almost the exact same size. Well, how about... Huh. He's only 6 foot and 305. These are some small defensive tackles that are just dominating football. It's very possible, especially because Levi was also misused as a nose tackle at Washington, and a lot of people say, for example, Jackson Krieger Sports, say he's a large arsenal of pass rush moves. Now, I don't per se have the film to show you like Jackson Krieger does, mainly because I get copyrighted, but that's just there. And this is a pick that frustrated a lot of Lions fans, including myself at first, but now I'm actually really in love with the selection of Alim McNeill. Alim McNeill, the good old nose tackle from North Carolina State. He's 6'2", 320 pounds. What are the positives? What are his statistical positives? Well, he had 77 tackles and 10 sacks and 2 forced fumbles and even a pick 6. It's a pretty athletic guy. And Liam is 6'2", 320. Now some may say, oh, but Spencer, how on earth is this a good selection? When, after all, he's not that explosive run stuffer, right? I thought Levi was supposed to be the pass rusher. Well, Liam's actually an extremely good run stuffer. I don't exactly have the film on him, because once again, copyright and permission, but you can look at the highlights himself and you know this guy causes disruption when he's at the O-line. He's disruptive. Now some may say also, once again, why double up on defensive tackle when you have Michael Walters? And the answer is, the Lions do not have a good natural nose tackle. I'm sorry, I love John Vincini just like the other guy, but he offers no pass rush potential, and I don't think is nowhere near as dominant as Alim McNeill can be. If you want a good comparison of who Alim McNeill can be, I got my guy for you. That's right. That's sad. De'Aaron Payne. Oh my gosh. Okay. My NFL comparison is De'Aaron Payne. The guy is an absolute legend. He's had 5 sacks, 2 sacks, and the thing is, his rushing numbers are just absolutely off the charts. If I can bring it up, oh well. He just dominated at the position. And if we can get a natural nose tackle like De'Aaron Payne, and he's out there, he's causing run stuffing, but he can also still add pass rush if it's, say, not a run stuffing move, I absolutely love it. Now, he won't be a dominant force to be reckoned with like an Aaron Donald or Jonathan Allen, but he's definitely going to be something that you don't just, push to the side when he's out there, but he also adds something to the run game. Now, what about Iffy? Iffy has the prototypical size of a corner. And I actually view this as a guy who's versatile, but also maybe a bit of a safety pick. And I don't mean just a position safety, but I mean in case Okuda is incredibly bad and Dunbar gets hurt like he has been a lot of his career. Now, I'll see if Fitu, see if this works. Alright, time to... Okay. And now it's working, ladies and gentlemen. I'll try to pull up your paint stats later. But, Ishitu is over 6'2", or around there perfectly. He's 6'3", 213 pounds, and he ran a 4.40. That is a size monster that I don't think should just be ignored because, well, that's scary. I do think there's the potential that he will be used as a safety due to the fact the Lions do have last year's number 3 overall pick, Jeffrey Okudah, and you have a good player in Amani O. But let's look. This guy had an extremely good last 2 seasons. He had 75 tackles, double-digit passes defense, a sack, and 3 interceptions. That's pretty dang good. Now, his coverage grades were iffier. Iffy. No pun intended. But this potential is off the charts due to his size, and he's shown lots of good potential. And the Lions should not ignore, and he fits their system, and Brad Holmes raved about him. So he's definitely more of the developmental pick due to the fact that most draft scouts see him as raw. And I'm fine with that due to the fact you have Dunbar, Okudah, and Amani, and Corn Elder on your team. But this is definitely a good selection, and I believe will be an absolute steal of a player. I think he can be as good as Trumaine Johnson was for the Rams. Then you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I think might honestly be the steal of our entire draft. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I've had conflicting reports on him being 5'11", 6 foot, or 6'1", but I think Amon-Ra is 5'11" because NFL.com says he's 5'11", and they measured him. So, yeah, 5'11.5", so he's practically close enough. And some people were actually kind of turned off because this guy is not burner, and he's not tall. But you know what I will tell you? Amon-Ra is a definition of a good player. Amon-Ra St. Brown had production while he was at college. He had a 1,000-yard season. He's been productive in the red zone. He was, according to the interview that he had on the Detroit Lions YouTube channel, he was 8th in contested catches. He has great separation. He is, according to PFN, he has a complete route tree. Look at this, 1,000 yards, 13 yards per catch, and 6 touchdowns with a long of 95. Now, this past season, he technically had a regression, although it was not his fault at all, due to the fact that it was a regress season. But let's look at this past season. He literally had a 4-touchdown game versus Washington. I don't care how bad the team is. USC is not that good. In fact, he had no business getting 4 touchdowns. Then he went on ahead and did good against UCLA, got 2 scores, and even 70 yards. Then he went and did good against Oregon as well. Provided a role, 2 straight 100-yard games. Amon-Ra has a lot of potential, and he reminds me a lot of Robert Woods. And that's even who Brad Holmes says he reminds me of. And I actually really like this. He moves faster than he does. He's lined up in the backfield. He's going to be in the slot and the outside. His versatility and his effectiveness is off the charts. He's definitely not going to be a Kenny Golladay or Calvin Johnson, but he's definitely going to be that dominant slot receiver that the Lions have missed out on since Golden Tate. His ability in yards after the catch, he's no Kadarius Toney or Golden Tate, but he's definitely great at it. Definitely something that Jared Goff needed. Now, Derek Barnes, in my opinion, is definitely the more interesting pick. Many Lions fans, including myself, were thinking the selection was going to be Jabril Cox, but instead the Lions went ahead and selected the linebacker out of Purdue. Now, granted, this linebacker is quite the gifted player. Now, he definitely doesn't have the eye-popping stats that he has in 2019 when he was moved to inside linebacker, which is where the Lions drafted him. And, because when he had 7.5 sacks as an outside linebacker, I like him personally more at outside linebacker than I do at middle linebacker, but the man, Dan Campbell, wants him there. So, yeah, Okay, so he had 54 tackles, 0 sacks, and a pick, and 8 passes, no passes defensed. But when he was an outside linebacker, he had 63 tackles and 7.5 sacks and a forced fumble. Definitely 2019 was his most impressive season. Run stuffing had a pretty good 2018, but this is what I have to say. This guy had a great combine or pro day. He ran a low 4.5, which is great for linebackers. He has good sideline to sideline range. I watch this guy's highlights or just in general his games. There's some games that you need if you want me to suggest you to watch from this past season. Watch the Northwestern game. He had 14 tackles. Then he had 3 straight other games. Minnesota is a pretty fair big program that was successful just a year ago, and he had 9 tackles. Now, granted, his performance versus Illinois is expected, 8 tackles and a pick, but it showed that this guy had some pretty productive things. Now, there's concerns about his passer rating, not his passer rating, but his coverage. He did have a low 60 passer rating. Now, he had very limited work in said thing, and he also didn't have the best completion percentage, but he was successful in said regard. If you need a comparison for who he can be, the player he most reminds me of is actually a former Lion, Stephen Tulloch. Now, granted, he no longer plays with the team or even in the NFL in general. He's a player you would have to be quite the original to remember. But he was definitely a good player. Now, his size is not the same, but look how good his statistics were. This guy was a monster. He wasn't amazing in pass coverage, but he was good in pass coverage. Look at all those 100 tackle seasons, even with Detroit. He showed potential in pass rush. He got some picks, which is something the Lions have really been missing. The only Lions player, you want to know who the only Lions player had that produced at all last season? This guy, the New England Patriot linebacker, Jamie Collins. Jamie freaking Collins, who was 30 years old. And what does he freaking do? Jamie gets over 100 tackles. 100. Over 100. With like the worst pass rush in the NFL. The worst, like the second worst defense, I believe, in the league. Yeah, over 100. He had 101 tackles, 1 sack, 3 forced fumbles, and a pick, and 6 passes defensed. Jamie was great for the Detroit Lions, but he was the only linebacker for the Detroit Lions that produced. So he's just been forgotten about. Maybe getting that big, hard-hitting linebacker that can do something is actually really impressive. Now, in round 7, the Detroit Lions selected Jermar Jefferson. This was definitely kind of a surprise to many Lions fans because you already had DeAndre Swift, you signed Jamal Williams, and you had Kerryon Johnson, but Kerryon was, as shown by this ESPN article, letting go of. Now, let's look into Jermar Jefferson and his college game. This guy's actually really, really impressive. He does not have the biggest physical profile, 5'10", 217, low 4.5 40, but this man pops off when he gets the ball. Looking at he got 6.5 yards per carry, over 226 yards and 2 touchdowns versus Oregon. He goes and gets 133 yards versus Washington touchdown, 196 versus California, 3 touchdowns versus Washington over 120 yards, 103 versus there. Not a single bad game that he had in 2020. 2019, he goes out. He pops off. Kills Washington State again. Doesn't have a good game against Oregon. Although he did have the fumble, but nonetheless it wasn't too bad. But look, 4 total touchdowns once again. He's a receiving threat. Kills it versus Arizona. Kills it versus Hawaii. This guy only has like a few amount of bad games in his career. He is a monster. Look at his just in general stats in college. The fact that this guy fell to the Lions to the second to last selection of the draft actually makes me dumbfounded. He had 5.7 yards per carry in his college career. Now, granted, he did lose attempts. I do not understand why, but this guy was killing it. His first season when he actually got real amount of rushing attempts, 5.8, 12 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards. He's a threat in the pass game when given the obstacle to, and he's even a good blocker. He kind of reminds me a bit of Carrion, but I think a lot more shiftier and healthier. And the Lions got themselves a player who I think can definitely rotate in and be good. Now, I don't think he's going to be that noticeable his rookie year, or even his first 2 seasons, because you got Swift and you got DeAndre Swift, but it's a good draft. I really like the draft. The Lions got themselves depth for their running back core. They got another receiver. They got a good linebacker. They got the good developmental corner. They invest into the trenches. Their O-line now contains Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, and Sewell. And the only question mark is the right guard spot. How nice is that to think we only have one position of weakness on our own line? And I honestly think Big V, or even maybe last year's 4th round draft pick Logan Stenberg, can produce. And I do think Lions fans forget how good Tyrell Williams can be. Tyrell Williams has had an 1,000-yard season. Look no further than his Los Angeles 2016 season, San Diego season, where he had over 1,000 yards and 17 touchdowns and averaged 15 yards per catch. And he's been pretty productive. Every year he's had over 650 yards, even when missing a couple actions and playing when injured. He was productive. There is no reason to think that Tyrell Williams sucks or cannot produce when he's only been good his entire career. He's been amazing at one point. Now, don't get me wrong. The Lions, I do not think, are a playoff team quite yet. There's a question mark of how good is Jared Goff going to be? Are we going to get 2018 or 2017 Goff, or even early 2020 Goff, or are we going to get end season Goff or 2019 season Goff, or even heck his rookie season Goff? Is Brashad Perriman going to start being consistent? Can Amon-Ra be as good as he was in college? Is Cephas going to produce? Can Hockenson take a leap and not? My one issue with him is he fell down a lot of times when he could have had more yardage. That's easy to fix, but can he get past? Can he get to that 1,000-yard mark? The Detroit Lions defense. Romeo's only had one exceptional season. Will he be consistent? Lee McNeil. Who knows what happens with him? Will he be that productive player? Will Levi be that productive 3-tech? Can he get past that size? Brockers is over 30. Is this another same old Lions move? Will we get an old D lineman and take away time from the young player? Trey Flowers, will he stay healthy? He's never stayed healthy. Julian Aguirre was not healthy last season, and we have no idea who he's going to be. Underrated player. I'll talk about him later. Jaline Tavai, he was awful last year. Can he produce like how he did in his rookie year, or be even better than his rookie year? Is Jamie Collins going to be good outside a Patriots system? Alex Amazzoni was a bit iffy in his career at New Orleans. Barnes is unproven. And the cornerback core I actually really like. Quinton Dunbar, can he come back healthy? Okudah, will he bounce back from his terrible rookie year? Terrible rookie year. Will Amadi O take the next step? Corn Elder played extremely well in the slot. But the big concern I have for me, the biggest part, is the safety core. What is the safety core? Tracy Walker, if he can return to 2019 form, amazing. Or better in 2019 form, great. Will Harris hasn't done anything. The only thing he ever seems to do that's productive, in my opinion, is he does not allow touchdowns. The rest of these guys are completely unproven. DeMarlo, inconsistent, didn't really do much at Buffalo. He does have potential because of his limited rotation. He did produce quite well. Nobody knows who this guy is, and who even knows what happened to Vamos. Elliott had a pretty good time in Notre Dame, but he did not even make the team last year. Bobby Price is a physical monster, but didn't get to produce much. TJ Morris, strictly special teams. We're not going to have, dear heavens, I do not want to have a Tony McRae 2.0. And even for our backups, if McNeil or even Levi O or Oleg Gatsur can stay healthy, can Pennicini come in and be productive? Nick Williams sucked last year. Like, what are they going to do? And we don't have that clutch kicker anymore, Randy Bullock. So there's definitely the concerns that I think I think the team is 8-8 at best. And I think they're going to end the season 6-10, but I think they're going to have a very similar year to Miami's and New York's year. I think similar to 2019 Miami and 2020 New York. They're going to be entirely competitive. You can tell it's a different team with a lot more potential that Lions fans are really, really going to appreciate and be happy with. And yeah, that's the end of my video. I think this is an absolute steal. There's so much these players have. If you guys need, I can do an in-depth analysis of these players a lot more, and just kind of like I simplified my versions of this. A lot of my video was mostly based on Penei Sewell, but nonetheless, I'm very confident about this. Heck, you even got Tyrell Crosby rotating. Oh my gosh, what a good old line. And peace out.